Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Facebook Live presentation from the Woodson Center, 1776 Unites, their year anniversary. I'm Kelly Wright, and I'll be your moderator tonight, and I'm pleased to be joined by so many wonderful people on tonight's program. So we're glad that you could be a part of us. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on this historic occasion for the Woodson Center. We are here tonight to celebrate with 1776 Unites and its first year anniversary. And I'd like to introduce our panelists because they will be serving as the co-hosts of tonight's event. Let me begin with Bob Woodson. He is the founder of the Woodson Center. Also Glenn Lowry, author and educator. And we're also joined by Ian Rowe, senior visiting fellow. Gentlemen, welcome to tonight's program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have each and every one of you. I'd like to talk to all three of you about why you're having this event tonight and discuss the importance of the event and the purpose for this live stream to share with your audience.
Well, the Woodson Center has been around about 39 years, and we've had a long history of serving low-income people and promoting the interests of low-income people through technical assistance and access to capital. But last year, the New York Times magazine section authored a series of essays led by Nicole Hannah-Jones. It's called 1619. They brought together a group of Black journalists and others to come together to rewrite American history. They published a series of essays called 1619. And they said that that should be the appropriate birthday for America, since that was the time when the first 20 African slaves appeared on our shores. They went on to conclude that because of America was promoted slavery, and that this was a contradiction, and since the founding fathers also, many of them were slave owners, therefore, the documents that they coined, the 1776 Declaration of Independence, was also flawed. They went on to say that America, as a consequence, is inherently racist, and that all whites in America are victimizers to be punished, and all Blacks are victims to be compensated. They offer no other solution except reparations. And what they offered is a revision of American history and a distortion of it. Since they were using the Black community as its messenger, we decided at the Woodson Center that the messenger, in challenging that we must summon those leaders in the Black community to offer an alternative narrative to this distortion of history, and that's what we called ourselves 1776. So we brought together the country's leading Black scholars and also activists together, and we formed the organization 1776 Unites. And so our purpose is to present an accurate history of America, because 1619's basic premise is that many of the problems facing Black America today, crime, violence, out-of-wedlock births, are directly related to the legacy of slavery and discrimination. And so what we're doing, we've summoned our scholars, we have created a group of essays and others to directly challenge this proposition that America should be defined by its birth defect of slavery rather than its promise that is contained in the Declaration of Independence. One of the first people I called to discuss this with was my colleague of many decades, Glenn Lowry from Brown University. And I would like Glenn, and through Glenn, I was able to meet Ian Rowe, and we have sort of formed a team, and they are the core of our scholars and activists. So I'd like them to just add their comments to this. Why 1776?
Well, I'm happy to start off. And thank you, Bob. I'm very excited about the initiative that 1776 Unites represents.
Mhm.
I say that for three reasons, frankly. I say that because Robert Woodson Sr. is a great man whom I've known for nearly 40 years and whose work through the National Center for Neighborhood Enterprise and now through the Woodson Center empowers people of color and otherwise on the ground in real struggling communities to take responsibility for their lives. That's a life's work that's worth celebrating. I'm here because I love America. Slavery was certainly a flaw, but it does not define the American project. Within the founding fathers' genius were the seeds of the liberation of the slaves, who, in the fullness of the time, have become citizens of this republic. This is a world historic achievement. Slavery is not new. Emancipation is new. It happened here. And I'm here because I believe in Black people, in our capacity to determine our own futures. And I resent the presumption that we must be dependent upon the sympathetic handout from whites in order to have command of our lives. That spirit is reflected in the work that 1776 Unites is doing. So I'm very proud to be associated with it.
Wow. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Kelly. I share your enthusiasm and admiration for the work that Bob Woodson has done for his entire life. And I'm here because for the last decade, I ran a network of public charter schools in the heart of the South Bronx and the Lower East Side of Manhattan. We had about 2,000 students spread across 5 campuses, almost all low-income kids, almost all Black and Hispanic kids. You know, we had 2,000 families in our schools. We had nearly 5,000 families on our wait list. And all these families were hoping for their children was to send their kid to a great school that could give their child a shot at the American dream. They knew that in their own lives they'd faced discrimination of all types. They knew that their kids would likely face it too. But they knew that with a great school, great instruction, high expectations, that their kids could succeed at the highest levels. And so in addition to teaching our kids math and science and all the important subjects, it was also really important that our kids understood that they live in a good, if not great, country. A country that's not hostile to their dreams, but in fact, as many of their predecessors did, kids who look just like them, kids from the same neighborhoods, kids with the same disadvantaged backgrounds, because they actually embraced the founding ideals of the country, were able to succeed at the highest levels. Family, faith, hard work, entrepreneurship. These were the tools to overcome discrimination, not to reject, as Bob said, the 1619 Project that claims that the founding ideals were false when they were written. That is absolutely false. The founding ideals are accessible to everyone, regardless of race, regardless of income. And so in the course of my work, I got to discover the work of Glenn Loury and Bob Woodson and what they were doing to present an alternative and empowering alternative story for what kids of all races should understand about America.
Gentlemen, thank you. We just heard from our panel, our host committee panel, I should point out, and they are certainly men who have a passion for doing great things for this nation and great things for the Black community. Again, we heard from Ian Rowe, the senior visiting fellow, and Glenn Loury, author and educator, as well as Bob Woodson, the founder of the Woodson Center. And we are here tonight because of 1776 Unites. I should point out for all of you who are watching us on Facebook Live, if you have comments throughout the program or any questions that should arise, be sure to go to your chat and send it in to us. We'll be sure to get to your responses before the end of tonight's program. But as we move on with the program in celebrating this year-long anniversary of 1776 Unites, we begin to talk about more of that by showing you some excerpts from people who felt compelled to send in their video responses. and their why as to why they're part of 1776 Unites. So we'll hear from 5 scholars. You heard Bob mention the scholars that he collected and got together with. We'll hear from 5 scholars and 1 community affiliate network. And you'll hear more about the CAN program, the Community Affiliate Network, member of that organization, the self-recorded videos that they made with their thoughts on 1776 Unites and the first year, and why it's important to them, and why it means so much to them to be a part of it. Watch this.
Hey everyone, I'm so excited about 1776 Unites anniversary. It's one of the most important things I participated in over the past year. I love Bob Woodson. Many of us know and recognize him as an important part of American history. So check out 1776 Unites. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Clarence Page. I joined the 1776 Unites project because I thought there was too much missing in our education about Black American history. We learned a lot about our oppression and our victimization, and we need to know about that. But I don't think we've seen enough about our resilience, our overcoming that led to our successes and victories in spite of that oppression. As Martin Luther King, Thurgood Marshall, Barbara Jordan, and other Black leaders have pointed out, our founders were not perfect men by any means, but the principles they left behind planted the seeds for the nation's perfection if we take advantage of them. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the stories we don't hear enough about. But as Kizzy said in the old Roots TV series, you got to know where you've been in order to know where you're going. We have plenty of these days to divide us. 1776 Unites.
My name is Norm Mulder. I'm the founder of Topuku, which is an acronym that stands for The Only Person You Cheat Is You. We heard about the Woodson Center and 1776 Unites a little while back. We attended one of the CAN Zoom meetings, and we were super excited to find people that were like-minded. The Community Affiliate Network just blew us away. In Topuku, one of our favorite sayings is a quote from Albert Einstein that says, "We can't solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them." And we found all these like-minded people that felt the exact same way. So we're super excited about our mini grant that we were given. We're working with the Cleveland Police Foundation here in Cleveland, Ohio, to put together a program that will help the kids learn to make better decisions and better choices and transform their lives. So I want to congratulate the Woodson Center and Dr. Woodson and Curtis on another great year, and look forward to it.
Well, I guess I'll just say congratulations to everyone at 1776. It is a beautiful effort, a beautiful undertaking. And I'll leave with a thought from one of my essays, one of my 1776 essays, where it ends by saying, if we keep the critique of our nation and lose the sense of universal ownership and belonging that our patriotic symbols are meant to instill, there's nothing left to stand for. And that is the beginning of the fall. And 1776 is about continuing standing, holding on to our legacy, holding on to the symbols of unity, of freedom, and of hope, really, and having that mentality. And I'm really thankful to be a part of the group that's trying to hold the line and to keep us standing. All right, everyone.
My name is Reverend Dean Nelson, and on behalf of the Frederick Douglass Foundation and the Douglass Leadership Institute, I want to wish Mr. Woodson and everyone at 1776 Unites a happy one-year anniversary. It's been a great privilege for our nationwide network of pastors and leaders to join with you in this exciting new movement. Mr. Woodson, we are so glad that you stepped up to answer the attacks on our nation's founding values. We are honored to partner with you and your team. God bless you in this wonderful effort.
Hey there, folks. Hey, I'm shooting this video really quick to just let people know that I could not be more excited to be a part of 1776 Unites. And you know, it's a crazy thing because this country has so many problems right now. There's so many folks who are losing hope in the idea that we can be better than we are, that we can engage issues like poverty, that we can work across the color line. And I think that part of the issue is that we don't always tell a story about America that reminds us just what the American people are capable of when we put our nose to the grind, get our fingers in the dirt, and lift each other up. But 1776 tells that story. 1776 tells the story of what the American people can do, what folks of every creed and color, the African American community and beyond can do to lift each other up, to impact poverty, to solve the problems that really make a difference in people's lives. And so the example of Bob Woodson and folks who are pioneers in the 1776 community are stories that need to be shared with everybody. I'm just happy to be a part of it. So keep doing what you're doing, folks. I'm glad that 1776 is on the front lines.
And so there you have it from some of our scholars, as well as one of our community affiliate network members. I'd like to introduce them again: John Wood, Reverend Dean Nelson, Yahya Fanusi, Norm Mulder, Clarence Page, and you heard first from Dr. Carol Swain. Bob, I'd like to bring you in here because this is something, when you hear their statements and their passion for 1776 Unites, and more importantly, for how they want to help this country grow, I'd like to ask you what your thoughts are about this and discuss the year in review for 1776 Unites and the Woodson Center.
Well, it's another example that people are motivated to change and improve themselves when they are exposed to victories that are possible, as opposed to always being reminded of injuries to be avoided. These folks also understand that the best antidote to disrespect is to perform better. And I'd like to show you a 5-minute video of just people accepting these principles and actually carrying them out. We want to give you a overview of the Woodson Center's network. In the 60s, the civil rights movement was defined by the rich debate as to the course forward. Unfortunately, today, that rich tradition has been abandoned and the civil rights movement has become an extension of the race grievance industry. As a civil rights veteran myself, I felt compelled to respond and push back against the use of the Black experience as a bludgeon against the country. The 1776 was developed to defend the ideals of the country that defined Black success in the presence of oppression of the past.
2020, a year unlike any in our lifetime. A year when hundreds of thousands of Americans died of a virus that did not exist the year before. A year of massive unemployment, explosive urban protests, and turbulent elections. And a year when the Woodson Center grew its outreach and explored new ways to support low-income communities across the nation. Against this background, the Woodson Center launched 1776 Unites. In February, the Woodson Center gathered a consortium of scholars and activists to respond to the rising tide of racial grievance and historical revisionism by telling the story of Black American resilience and achievement. A year later, the movement is still generating excitement among Americans of all races and backgrounds. Why? 1776 Unites brought together scholars and activists, our nation's thinkers and doers. This allowed the work of our grassroots leaders to inspire and inform the work of our scholars, who were then able to present their stories and solutions to academia, the media, and the policymakers. The Woodson Center also created the 1776 Unites curriculum as an alternative to the racial grievance dogma overtaking countless schools. The curriculum addressed the need for greater instruction in the Black American experience, focusing on inspirational stories of resilience, triumph, and hope that show a clear path forward. Our community affiliate network gathered grassroots leaders from around the country with monthly calls. This outreach enabled them to network, share insight, encourage, and support one another. The Mini Grants program also provided financial resources to local leaders to assist in carrying out projects to solve a specific problem or meet a need in their communities. while many individuals and organizations want to deploy the Woodson Center's approach to addressing social problems, they need support to identify and engage with the appropriate grassroots leaders in their community. Woodson Center consultants continue to help make these connections.
Blacks in America have been able to survive slavery and discrimination because they embraced the ideals of the American founding principles of faith and family and hard work and self-determination.
These ideals didn't appear out of nowhere. They are still transmitted by our institutions, large and small. Just ask the students of the Piney Wood School, one of the only 4 remaining historically black boarding schools, where more than 97% of its graduates enroll in college. The Woodson Center's fundraiser connected the Piney Wood School to donors who share its values, as well as providing matching funds to help more deserving students attend. Or consider the live stream event on law enforcement community partnerships. This was a police community collaborative initiative that addressed violent crime in low-income neighborhoods. Police chiefs and community leaders across the country explored the successes of the Woodson Center's past violence-free zone initiatives. Another successful live stream event was COVID-19 safety in the Black community. This showcased the need for greater vigilance and personal responsibility in combating the spread of the virus with Reverend DeForest Blake Buster Soares Jr. And throughout the year, our outreach efforts continue to grow.
You know, people are motivated to improve their lives when they're shown victories that are possible, not being constantly reminded of injuries to be avoided. And this is what we've done over this past year. We brought together scholars, individuals, we brought grassroots leaders whose lives embody the very principles and ideals of our founders. All of us coming together as a community of people, of Americans, to extol the virtues and values of our nation. And we're just getting started. And with your continued help, we can even do more. This is a wonderful country, and we ought to be celebrating our success.
And that, my friends, is a year review of 1776 Unites. And you get a bird's eye view of the Woodson Center, a close-up personal look at what's going on, and hearing the vision and seeing the vision, making it plain through those who have provided their services, through those who have provided their intellect and their inspiration and their sense of duty and purpose to empower Black communities throughout this country, and thereby lift up those communities. And by doing that, actually lift up America. There's a lot of patriotism in that, and there's a lot of honor and duty to country, to God and country, I should point out. But to talk further about this, let's bring our panelists back in again, our host committee. And Glenn, let me begin with you because, as you watched that and reflected on what you and Ian and Bob initiated with 1776 Unites, what do you think when you look at it from your perspective on what has been accomplished in this first year?
I think it's very significant, Kelly. I think an example is being created here, a powerful example. I think voice is being given to certain principles and certain values that one does not hear often enough. So the optimistic belief in America as a framework within which African Americans can realize our dreams and our hopes, the empowerment of people to seize the opportunity that's available here, and the voice given to the variety of value commitments, to religious institutions, to what we might call old-fashioned, conservative African American sensibility that brought our ancestors through a storm and gave us the foundation that we stand on today. You don't hear enough of that from the talking heads who claim to represent African American interests. So I think that this is a very significant effort. And again, I'm proud to be associated with it.
Ian Rowe, what say you about the program that you're associated with now, 1776 Unites and the Whitson Center?
I would concur with the comments that Glenn just made. I mean, I always start with the vantage point is what's the message that we're sending to young people about the ability for them to become agents of their own uplift. And just for a second, reflect on if you were to show that video that showed just incredible people from all over the country solving problems within their local community, and contrast that to the message that literally every single day you hear on mainstream and other forms of media about how if you're Black, you're going to be shot in the street, that you're going to be killed by the police, you're going to be redlined, you're marginalized, you're oppressed, you're going to be on the school to prison pipeline, you're going to be a victim of white supremacy, you're going to be mass incarcerated, the world is just going to happen to you over and over and over again. And contrast that to the message that we just watched in that video of people coming together and solving problems within their own community. A multiracial coalition of people coming together to solve problems. That's what 1776 Unites is all about. The founding principles of faith, family, hard work, entrepreneurship, those are the tools accessible to everyone that give us the ability and give young people the ability to believe in this country, to believe in themselves, and to believe in their capacity to overcome real issues. We're not dodging the fact that there are real issues in our country, but let's not steal away from kids the very tools that they have within their capacity to utilize. And that's why I'm really proud to be part of 1776 Unites.
Well, what I'm hearing from everyone is the fact that they're stating that the Black community is not monolithic in thought, that they have varying degrees of looking at a problem and then finding a solution to thereby show their contributions to the growth of their communities and this country, as well as to continue to make strides for their wonderful accomplishments.
Yes. In one sense, I'm a veteran of the civil rights movement. And I can tell you, I almost prefer the old-fashioned bigotry because at least it was external. But what our young people are being told today is that no matter what problems you have, it's not your fault. And there's nothing more lethal than a good excuse for failing. Nothing is more lethal than that. That when whites were at their worst, Blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. The Walla Haji in Atlanta, the Carver and Calvert Hotel in Miami, the St. Teresa in New York, the St. Charles in Chicago, and on and on. And so what we want to do is through 1776 is to continue to inspire people by showing them victories that are possible. People born slaves who died millionaires using the free enterprise system. This is what you're going to see when you read our essays and look at some of the reports that we're going to be releasing.
And you're talking about the essays and some of the reports that you're going to be releasing. For those of you who are watching, you may have an interest. They may have, what you've seen so far may have piqued your interest to find out more about this program, 1776 Unites. And you can get that by actually going to 1776unites.com. And you can consider making a donation at that point for these important programs. Also, there are action steps that you can take to be involved in your community, along with the Whitson Center and the Community Affiliate Network, as well as 1776. You can read the essays, as Bob just talked about, and there are lots of wonderful perspectives that you can actually look at. And then you can also take some action steps in your community by sharing these essays with with everyone that you're involved with, your family, your friends. And there's just so many things that you can do to be proactive to try to build up your community. And so there's so much that you can do. And the best way to find out how to do it is to go once again to 1776 Unites. And now I want to turn it over back to Bob, because Bob, we want to talk about introducing more programs that are going on.
Yes, we have our community network of grassroots organizations. You know, it's one thing to talk about ideas and principles, but people want to see a sermon and not necessarily hear a sermon all the time. And so what we have brought about a confluence between our scholars and also our activists. And we'd like to hear from some of our CAN members, we call community leaders around the country. So we want to introduce some of them via video.
Hello, I'm Rochelle Johnson-Smith, founder of God-Fearing Powerhouse, located here in Houston, Texas. I just want to say thank you, Woodson Center, for the opportunity to be a part of the mini grant and the great impact that it had on our community. We were able to partner with Book Nook. It's an educational monitoring service that customized tutoring for the youth that are enrolled, and they're able to monitor their growth and show the great strides that they made through the tutoring platform. And the technical side, through Book Nook, was able to capture the data of the kids from beginning to end. And this was at great time. It was very timely during COVID-19 to be able to see that there was no lack in their education. And I also want to say congratulations to 1 year, and keep doing what you do for the community and being a blessing to all.
Charles Love here, host of The Charles Love Show and Assistant Executive Director of Seeking Educational Excellence. We are facing many challenges in our country today: a global pandemic, wanton criminality, and an educational crisis poised to limit the achievements and critical thinking skills of our future generations. Many blame these challenges on inequalities, race, gender, socioeconomic status, and while many of the problems do disproportionately affect the Black community, an extreme focus on racism as the cause does a disservice to the very people these race-focused groups claim they want to help. 1776 Unites takes a different approach, choosing to focus on upward mobility and expanding opportunities for the least among us. There is a pathway to prosperity, but it can only be achieved through one America, not by focusing on the struggles of disparate groups. I am honored to be a part of an organization with such amazing thinkers and doers. So much has been achieved in just 1 year. I look forward to where we'll go in the future. Thank you.
We're eternally told that it's an eccentric idea to suppose that we can achieve under less than ideal conditions. It's not true that descendants of African slaves at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st are in the unique position in the history of human endeavor to only be able to achieve under perfect or even near perfect conditions. I salute 1776 Unites for uniting us under an understanding that yes, we can't is no watch cry for a people who truly love themselves. Congratulations. I'm happy to be with you.
And welcome back. That's really good to hear from those particular scholars as well as members of the CAN group. And I want to circle back, Bob, if we can, to the 1776 Unites, because in addition to offering essays, I understand there's also a curriculum that you have created, a 1776 Unites curriculum. Tell us about that, because I understand it's coming out in a couple of months.
Well, I want to defer to my colleague, Ian Rowe, because he is the scholar who is taking the lead on our curriculum development. And he's much in demand by school boards around the country to give testimony And he's been very effective in that. So I'm going to ask him if he would take that and address it.
Well, thank you, Bob. And Kelly, thank you for the question. One of Bob's most important lessons, I think, for all of us is not just to talk, but to walk, to put our principles in action, to demonstrate how our values are actually played out. And so when we saw that the New York Times 1619 Project, they were not satisfied with just having a special magazine issue. They wanted to indoctrinate kids in this very perverse view of American history, that the country is an irredeemably racist nation, that it was founded as a slavocracy, not a democracy. They wanted to implant that in the minds of kids all around the country. And so they decided to put some tremendous resources into crafting a curriculum that's now been propagated by the Pulitzer Center. And so it became clear that, as we've said, we've wrote essays, we're providing financial grants to local community activists. But that wasn't enough. We had to put our values in action. We had to create a compelling counter, an alternative, and empowering a curriculum that ultimately will be free to anyone wherever character development is happening for children. That could be in schools, after school, churches, in your home, anywhere where you want to tell incredibly inspiring stories, authentic and complete stories about the African American experience in the United States. So we have embarked upon an endeavor to create a free K through 12 curriculum. We've released the first component of that, which is at the high school level, grades 9 through 12. In just a few months, we've already had nearly 8,000 downloads of this curriculum. When the New York Times talks about its 1619 project, the Pulitzer Center says it's downloaded something like 3,500 units. So we're very proud of the fact that we're creating something that is in demand. And the New York Times 1619 project has now been widely discredited. It's been called out for its false revisionism of American history. And so our existence right now is really focused on empowering young people of all races to understand stories like Biddy Mason, who was born a slave and died a millionaire and a great philanthropist. How did she do that under the conditions under which she lives? Or to understand how Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald came together to build more than 5,000 schools throughout the South during Jim Crow segregation, where the answer was not, well, I guess we just got to give up. We're just victims. We just got to give up. Booker T. Washington said, no, we can amass our own resources, create the kinds of partnerships, and demand excellence from our own people. And ironically, it's actually the Brown versus Board of Education decision which forced the closure of more than 5,000 schools that were exclusively built for Black kids. But these are the stories that everyone needs to know. The one thing that the 1619 Project did actually do, it unearthed that there is strong interest in a broader understanding of the African American experience in the United States. So let's fulfill that need, but let's fulfill it honestly. Let's fulfill it with accurate, authentic, and complete stories of the African American experience, and tell how embracing the ideals of family, faith, hard work, entrepreneurship were the tools through which we moved from persecution to prosperity. And we can do the same thing today.
Ian, there's a lot you said there, and I'm hearing a theme throughout this program tonight about 1776 Unites. You were talking about the curriculum and how the curriculum is designed to enlighten people and empower people and educate people about the legacy that so many of our forebears, our forefathers have left for us, and our ancestors providing for us so that we could have this hope for a brighter future and not look at our past as being disastrous, but making sense of our present to have that hope for the future. But the one thing I keep hearing out of this, actually, there are two things: resilience and perseverance. And Bob, I want to bring you back in now, because resilience and perseverance is thematic all throughout the African American history and all throughout the African diaspora, for that matter. And the Woodson Center is not only involved in the 1776 Unites curriculum and 1776 Unites in terms of telling the story about how we've come this far by faith, but it's also dealt with the issues that are problematic in our communities. I'm speaking in regard to violence. It's my understanding that the Woodson Center is involved in violence prevention, and that you've launched a new program, Voices of Black Mothers United. And Bob, I'd like you to talk about that a little bit before I introduce the video, so we can hear from these courageous mothers who are part of Voices of Black Mothers United.
Well, violence reduction and the stabilization of communities has been a very important part of the Woodson Center's experience over the years. 23 years ago in Washington, D.C., there was an area called Benning Terrace, public housing. It had 53 murders in a 5 square block area in 2 years because of the warring factions. And I had been experienced in gang intervention, and I'd worked with 5 grassroots leaders who had the trust and confidence of the young people in the community. And they were ex-offenders, and they had been redeemed, and therefore were powerful witnesses that redemption was possible. Anyway, the long story short, I encouraged them to go into that community. They brought 16 young men to my office in different vans, and we negotiated a gang truce. And as a consequence of this intervention, we were able to take these young men and change them from predators to ambassadors of peace. And so they took this, once their character changes, their characteristic has an advantage of being healing agents in that community. And as a consequence of going in, they were able to reduce the violence to the point where we went from 53 gang murders in a 5 square block over 2 years, down to 0 gang murders for 12 years, as these young men were redirected. And so we believe that the answers to violence and unrest in these communities can be found in the same zip code as the problem. And another area of a group of grassroots leaders have been the mothers. Everyone talks about, social justice warriors talk about defund the police. But when you ask the mothers of these fallen children what they believe about the police, you hear a different story. These moms have come together and called the Voices of Black Mothers United. They approached us to bring them together so they can speak for themselves about the issues of policing, instead of having the so-called people who are advocating defund the police. Some of those people don't have to live with the consequence of their advocacy, but these mothers do. And I want you to we are just proud to be with them and to learn from them and to sponsor their efforts to play a role in making our community safer, and also coming together to work with the police department to reduce violence and make our community safer, and bring aid and comfort to other mothers who have suffered the sting of losing a child.
Bob, thank you for that. I think on that note, to your point, we should go to the video showing the Voices of Black Mothers United expressing their lives and their perspective in their own words. Watch this.
Crystal Joy Bennett, my daughter, 19 years old. In fact, she just turned 19 a week before. And her girlfriend, Taryn, was caught in a crossfire at a gas station, no doubt, where 2 guys having issues with each other, shooting at each other, and 1 bullet went through her car door, went through her body, stopped in the heart of her girlfriend next to her, and both girls died. That was the beginning of a very bad nightmare for me and my family. Her last words, because there was a third girl in the car, and her last words was, "Somebody please call my mommy." That will forever pierce my heart because mommy wasn't there. I went through, my God, all kinds of heartache and pain, not being able to breathe, sometimes not wanting to breathe because the pain was so rippling.
And I remember on February 9th, my son Gregory called me and he said, "Mom, I want you to stop what you're doing right now and pray for strength." So I did. I ran to my sofa, fell on my knees and said a quick prayer, wondering why. 20 minutes later, I got a call back and he said to me, "Mom, we lost him." And I asked him, "What do you mean we lost him?" He said, "My brothers." So I learned that day that my beloved twin sons had been murdered and that they were not coming back. Grief is very crippling. For me, I suffered a long-term depression. My last job was at the VA in Menlo Park. I could not handle my job. My doctor placed me on long-term disability.
For more than half a century, America's Black urban centers have been ground zero for acts of carnage. And while gang violence has taken the lives of too many teenagers and young men, many of those killed have been innocent children who were caught in a crossfire. Compounding this tragedy are those left behind, specifically the Black mothers of these children, with no way to voice their demand to reduce the street violence in their neighborhoods. Until now. Voices of Black Mothers United will ensure they are heard by the entire nation. The Woodson Center launched this new initiative to raise public awareness of these tragic deaths, provide these mothers with mutual support, and collaborate with law enforcement and community members to make their neighborhoods safe and peaceful once again. Its founder, Bob Woodson, explains how the center's 40 years of experience in finding local solutions to urban violence led to the formation of Voices of Black Mothers United.
First of all, Black mothers live in those communities suffering the problem, and therefore they should determine how that community should be protected. Secondly, they are the ones who are the best authority on what constitutes a solution. And thirdly, they are the ones that have to live with the consequence of decisions made by the police and by public officials about where investments should be made. Those decisions should be made by the people suffering the problem and have the greatest consequence for those in their community. Also, they have a proprietary interest in solutions, not rhetoric. They have recommendations to make. They are the ones who know what effective policing looks like. They know how to properly deploy police. So therefore, their voice should be the primary one that officials listen to, as opposed to the rhetoric of people who don't have to suffer the consequence of the decisions made in those communities.
Another key to the Woodson Center's past success in reducing youth violence in urban areas was the close cooperation they established with the local police departments. As such, the center, along with these United Black Mothers, are strongly opposed to defunding police departments. Instead, they favor sensible reforms where needed. Rodney Monroe, a former police chief, explains.
In order for this to work, in order for police and black mothers of homicide victims to come together, there has to be a level of trust. And with that comes an openness that both sides will have to have in order to trust one another. And there's a lot of dynamics that come into play because you're asking them to come inside of an organization, black mothers to come inside of police organizations, and you're asking police organizations to come further inside of the community and the lives and the homes of victims of homicides. Defunding the police would take away viable resources that can be used to help support families and victims of homicides. Bottom line.
Marcus Jones is chief of police in Montgomery County, Maryland, adjacent to Washington, D.C. His insight into why the Black Mothers United initiative is needed is informative.
Particularly in today's climate, when we're talking about policing in our communities, I think, and when we're talking to a lot of politicians, we're talking to our community members, what's being lost in these conversations are victims' families. Every opportunity I get to remind the politicians about when we talk about crime and we talk about certain things happening in our communities, that there are victims that are out there that don't necessarily have the voice.
With the launch of Voices of Black Mothers United, this group will provide their valuable insights to promote better cooperation between local communities and law enforcement. They'll participate in the training and deployment decisions of law enforcement. And they'll help reduce local murder rates by enlisting community-based approaches that promote healing from within their neighborhoods. In short, it gives mothers like Sylvia and Lorraine a voice that needs to be heard in every corner of America.
If you've lost a child to violence, or if you know someone who has, there's a group of mothers who are here to support you and to help you change your neighborhoods.
Please go to the Woodson Center website. Get the information, join us, and we will contact you. Remember, one story of hurt and despair can become a story of hope and healing.
A remarkable program that we've seen, and based on some wonderful champions of hope. Those particular mothers understand what it's like to be united in pain, but also to be united in having hope over despair and faith over fear. And the theme of our 1776 Unites program tonight is triumph, perseverance, truth. Or in the reverse order, truth, perseverance, and triumph. The bottom line is, if you read the biblical text of perseverance, perseverance leads to character. And a lot of times perseverance is caused by sorrow, caused by heartbreak, caused by pain, which is what we've seen in the lives of those particular moms. And we've also seen how they are now turning their pain into power to empower others throughout our community. Let me bring in our host committee again, Bob, Glenn, Ian. It's just, to me, it's really incredible, and it shows us the truth of how these incredible mothers have persevered and how they are triumphing. Talk to me, if you will, about what you just saw and what kind of impact it has on you in influencing you and inspiring you to set forth an example that others can follow?
Well, I just like to say, I wasn't asked, but I'll go first. Man, how moving, how poignant, how touching, how powerful those voices. That is the authentic voice of the African American experience on the ground, where lives are being taken, where Black lives are being lost, where Black lives are being valued. We ought to have been hearing those voices all along. We should have been hearing them from Ferguson, Missouri. We should have been hearing them from Baltimore, from Chicago. We should have been hearing those voices all along. And we need to be asking why it has taken so long, and it has taken the initiative of 1776 Unites to showcase those voices. That's an indictment of the media of our country and of the values that they reflect. And it's a statement about what the authentic African American experience has to teach us today, right now.
I will say at that point, if I can interject, Glenn, that you're right. The media at large has failed to talk about these incredible stories. But as a journalist myself and someone who's actually been there on the front lines and seeing with my own two eyes what happens and hearing from mothers like this and talking to them up close and personal, as well as trying to help report on the successes and triumphs of their children doing extraordinary things, I have to say that there are some of us who are awakened to the fact that this is the truth, and we've seen people persevere, and we're reporting their triumphant stories. So I just wanted to interject that thought that not all of us are looking the opposite direction, looking for sensationalism, but we're looking for the wonderful celebration of people who have been able to overcome and thereby go out and help challenge and change the environments in which they live, whether it's a young mentoring group that's going against the grain, and acting on behalf of people in the trenches, training them how to be better and helping them to grow stronger so that they have a bright hope and future, or groups like yourselves. Those incredible mothers will have to be telling their story more and more, and I think more media operations or organizations should focus on them. I'm sorry for interrupting, had to throw that in. Ian, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was good. No, it's very profound. Look, I run schools in neighborhoods exactly like similar to the communities in which these moms live. And I know in those communities, their families trying to do everything for their kids. And we have families that are thriving in those same communities. We need to listen to those families too. Families who, again, following the core principles of family, faith, hard work, entrepreneurship, putting that into practice. But Glenn is right. We should have been hearing these voices of Black mothers all this time. I mean, again, contrast what you just heard to what you have generally seen on your television screens all year. People screaming that it's we have to defund the police, these organizations creating police as the enemy. And yet here are these moms saying something very different. And they live there. They don't have the benefit of coming in from the suburbs or making all these statements and then leaving. Let's listen to the people who live in these communities, who are wanting to come together, who want to come to the schools that we run, that want to create great things for their kids. I think we'll end up with a lot better solutions than what we're crafting now.
Thank you, Ian and Glenn, and we're going to bring in Bob as well. But, gentlemen, as I watch the ladies, I know that they're also working with their local law enforcement communities. I've had the pleasure and humble honor of working with the National Center for the Prevention of Community Violence. And it's a program of police officers, police chiefs, as well as, civilians and community members, from lay members to church members to people who have been out there in the streets or formerly incarcerated. I've had the pleasure of working with Hope for Prisoners or mentor groups like Champs in Chicago, or Ceasefire, or Cure Violence. These are all programs that are doing exactly what these ladies are doing. But the one thing I would have to say, Bob, is that what I've seen from the prevention of community violence is that they've adopted a program called Actively Caring for People. What an impact right there, actively caring for people. And to improve the relationships between police and the communities they serve, they've also created Actively Caring for Policing. Because as we've seen these mothers do, and as we've seen 1776 Unites in some of its essays, as well as the affiliate network, the community affiliate networks, people are actively caring for each other and thereby actively and proactively helping each other grow. Bob, I think that's part and parcel of how we can see some synergies between all of these groups coming together. And it may not lead the news at night, but it can be reported on and reflected upon, just as you're doing tonight, and just as these organizations continue to do as well.
There's such a rich reservoir of innovation and inspiration. One mom in particular is a perfect example of radical grace in action. That for 10 years, she has been corresponding with the young man in prison who took her son's life. And he has changed, and she's cooperating with him. If someone can forgive someone who took the life of their own child, how can people be contending with one another because of race or because of different political views? And so there's so many lessons that we can learn from these moms that can really help heal this nation. But they are part of a group of community CAN members that they are an integral part. In our market economy, only 3% of the people are entrepreneurs. They generate 70% of the jobs. Well, we believe that our CAN members are social entrepreneurs, and by supporting even a small number of them, they can have a huge impact of revitalizing and restoring and redeeming communities from the inside out and the bottom up. And that's why we were just pleased to be sponsoring this CAN network under the leadership of Curtis Watkins at the center. And I know, Kelly, we have some of them that we have on tape. And afterwards, I want to discuss our grants program.
Absolutely. Let's roll the tape and show them.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Ralph Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Nehemiah Project, which is a reentry bridge housing program in Washington, D.C. And I want to congratulate the Woodson Center on the 1776 Unites initiative, which I believe is exactly what this country needs right now to heal the socioeconomic woes that we have and just the cultural problems that we have right now in this country. I know for a fact that the problems stem out of a loss of values and the undergirding of all the values that we need to heal this problem. These problems that we have is love, and it's just disappeared in today's world. So I'm standing ready to try to see whatever I can do to continue to support 1776 Unites. And I was a grateful recipient of a Woodson grant earlier this year for $5,000.
Hello, I am Jesse Turner, a local pastor here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. We want to congratulate 1776 Unites for its effort to bring a curriculum forward that would drill deeper into the history of these United States. We are infusing this program into our current program to give it a boost and to bring about more detail of the successes of the African American here in these United States. So I say congratulations to you for a full year of success with the 1776 Unite. And I look forward to even greater things in the year to come. So again, thank you for your work, your time, your energy, and your effort. God bless.
Hi, I'm Willie Peterson, pastor of the New Birth Kimmerbrook Baptist Church and the executive director of the Center for Community Empowerment in Youngstown, Ohio. When Mr. Woodson asked me to be a part of the 1776 Unites project, I said yes, because it was an opportunity to be a part of a project that focused on the solutions to the challenges we face in education and cultural awareness here in America. It also provides a voice to highlight the success of the many Black Americans who excelled during an oppressive time in American history. I'm honored and proud to be amongst the writers, the thinkers, and activists whose stories are currently being told. Congratulations, 1776 Unites, on your first year of success. Blessings to you and your future endeavors. Congratulations.
And so we just heard from Pastor Willie Peterson, Pastor Jesse Turner, and Reverend Ralph Williams, all reflecting on the community affiliate network, and also the fact that bringing Bob back in now, the fact that they have been able to receive many grants. Tell me about your mini grant program so that other groups who are watching can actually get involved in applying for that grant.
Well, I believe the way you instill trust is to be morally consistent and honest. One of my complaints over the years with the poverty industrial complex is of the $22 trillion that the federal government has spent over the last 50 years on poverty. 70 cents of every dollar goes not to the poor, but those who serve the poor. They ask which problems are fundable, not which ones are solvable. So I did not want to fall into that same trap, be guilty of that. So with the first grant monies that the Woodson Center received in 1776, with over half of the money we received initially, we put up $500,000 to give $5,000 grants to 100 of our groups to provide seed capital for them to engage in innovative solutions. We've had fundraisers for the Pineywood School that has generated money to them. So we believe that as we prosper and as our supporters bless us, that we feel that we want to be blessing the people in the community who are walking the walk and doing the work. So we were just very pleased to be able to offer these mini grants, and we will continue in the future doing the same thing. And that's why we are proud of this experience. And so that's what will be others who offer testimony about what this has meant to them.
Well, Bob, on that note, we'll introduce two of the awardees of the mini grant program. Here they are now, David Mann and Betty Tyler.
Good evening. I'm Betty Tyler with Marvelous Works here in the state of Mississippi. Recently, MWI received funding from the Woodson Center 1776 Unites initiative to address stressors female ex-offenders were dealing with after returning home from long prison stay due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The highlight of the project was the implementation of one of the initiative's educational curriculum, Woodson Principles. The curriculum was both culturally sensitive and very appropriate for the population. The strategic framework based on self-efficacy and community reinforcement improvements. We thank you, Woodson Center and 1776 Unites, for all that you do. Thank you.
When I was first approached by the Woodson Center, 1776 Unites and Can to be a part of the organization, I was really unfamiliar with the organization and Mr. Woodson. And so I remember I spent the entire weekend just soaking up, all the wisdom and insights. One video turned to 3, and then by Sunday I'd spent hours just listening to Mr. Woodson debates and interviews. And like so many other people, who have a heart to serve the community and maybe even come up, dealing with many of the crazy issues that we now champion as adults. I was looking for both a message and a messenger that resonated not just with my heart to see solutions and help people, but also my biblical worldview. And that was very, very unique to hear the message of Bob Woodson, the demeanor in which he communicated, the respect and dignity in which he treated the people he was debating. And man, I was blown away. I have found after all those hours and conversations and things like that with him, as well as the team, I have found Mr. Woodson to both be that man and that messenger. And man, I'm truly blessed and honored to be a part of the team for sure.
Welcome back to the program. As we get close to wrapping things up, I want to bring in Glenn, Ian, and Bob to reflect on these programs and all that we've seen here this evening. But before we do that, gentlemen, there is a question that has come in. There's several questions that have come in, actually. The question is in alignment with you acknowledging the CAN program, but someone is asking a question: is there a CAN group in Columbus, Ohio? We'll start there.
We do have a group. I'll have to check, but we do have a group in Columbus, I believe. But we'll put it.
All right. So to the larger question that I wanted to ask you, we've heard from people who have received grants, many grants from the Woodson Center. We've heard from people who are part of the Community Affiliate Network, better known as CAN. And yes, they can. And they are going out and doing great things for their communities. So, gentlemen, how do you weigh in on this issue as you see some of the impact that these influencers in their communities are utilizing through the community affiliate network?
Well, I would just offer that it's a great example of Bob's philosophy to walk the talk. And he said, as the organization itself received more resources, it didn't hoard those. It didn't. It said the first thing we should do is fund the people on the ground that can animate the very philosophy that we're talking about. And full disclosure, my colleague Nike Fejors also received a grant, and that has allowed us to create a new video podcast series called The Invisible Men. And each week we talk to exceptional individuals that you may not know, but demonstrably live lives of Black excellence. And the idea is that each week, this grant helps to fund to demystify those stories so that you can learn from people who are successful in business, faith, academia, all walks of life. And it's just one example of what the grants are doing all around the country.
Ian? I'm sorry, Glenn.
No problem, Kelly. There's dignity, honor, respect, and self-respect in the work that was highlighted in that last set of cameos. This is what racial equality is supposed to look like in this country. It's we African Americans seizing the nettle, manning and womaning up to the challenge, and making our lives here in this great country. This kind of thing cannot be given to us. This is not something that can be handed over as a response to a demand where we ball up our fists and we wail and we cry and we scream. This is getting your hands dirty on the ground, engaging in the lives of your fellow African Americans and making a difference. This is what racial equality, racial dignity, and honor look like. Nobody is coming to save us if we're not able to raise our children, clean up our streets, get our young men right, and move forward. We got to do it ourselves, and Bob and company are doing it.
Let me go to a question. Thank you for that, Glenn and Ian. A question from one of our viewers tonight who is asking, can someone tell me, or actually they're asking, can we get 1776 curriculum into their local program, into their local school program? We addressed that, but I'd like you to address it again for that particular person who's asking the question.
Thank you for the question. And as I said, we've designed the curriculum. It's absolutely free. ultimately will be for grades K through 12. And it's designed to be downloaded wherever character development happens. So that can be in a school, after school, in a faith-based organization, at home, around your dinner table. And you can find it at 1776unites.com. When you go to the website, you'll see a tab for curriculum. And you just go there and you'll find some of the units that I've already talked about. All we ask in return is that you give us your email address and your location, and the type of person that you are. So that's how we know, in the more than or close to 8,000 downloads we already have, we know that we've got people in all 50 states. We know the vast majority of the people downloading the curriculum are educators. So please we've had many wonderful stories of educators across the country implementing this curriculum and seeing in the eyes of young people that, wow, there's a warts and all, telling the full story of the African American experience. And yet, even in the face of atrocities, the principles that those folks back then practiced to move from persecution to prosperity are the same principles that can be embraced today. So please, I'm very thankful that you will pursue the curriculum in your schools.
Here's another question that was just sent in from Aaron Martin. And Aaron is asking, are HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, embracing your curriculum?
Oh, we would love them to. I'm not sure if I'd have to check our records to see if we have any specific, but we certainly would believe that the curriculum is in many ways completely aligned to the very formation of HBCUs in the first place. I mean, HBCUs represent this whole idea that Black excellence can happen in an all-Black school. That's what HBCUs are all about. I would be very excited if HBCUs rejected this idea of victimization and this sort of permanent oppressed category, and instead embraced the ideals the formation of HBCUs were built on in the first place.
Dr. Bernard Anderson, who is a former chairman of the board of Tuskegee Institute, is one of our scholars.
Excellent. Well, that nearly wraps things up for tonight on this wonderful program, 1776 Unites, the Woodson Center, and the impact that it's making on various communities throughout this country, celebrating its 1-year anniversary. Before we close tonight, Bob, I'd like to hear from you some closing thoughts, and Glenn and Ian, closing thoughts from you as well.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, Bob, you should close. I'll just say it's been an honor to be part of this night. It's been an honor to be part of 1776 Unites. And honestly, I just think about, where our country will be 50 years from tonight. And my hope is that we will have catalyzed the movement of people of all races to understand that this country, despite its flaws, was founded in freedom, and founded in this idea that your freedom requires rights and responsibilities, and that those responsibilities require an embrace of faith, family, hard work, entrepreneurship, and more often than not, you will be rewarded in return for the embrace of those principles. And I'm just really excited to be part of this organization and part of an effort to hopefully build a multiracial coalition around these values.
I could only second that. Bob should have the last word here. I can only second what Ian just said. I'm very proud of the association. I live in the Ivory Tower. We're all intellectuals up here. The connection to the practical efforts on the ground in communities across this country, which Bob has empowered me to be able to be involved in, has deeply enriched my own life. I think there's solutions here. There are answers here. And need to keep on doing what we're doing, I think, Bob. More power to you.
Well, I want to thank all of you for who are taking the time to spend with us, and also our scholars and activists. We've tried to bring together the best of the suites together with the best of the streets. and that's our coalition. And but I also want to give a special thanks to Beth Feely. When this first started, it was just Beth and I on the phone, and she's kind of my whole back office, and she's one of our senior advisors. But Beth, thank you so much for your hard work and that made this happen. But stay tuned. In April the 6th, we will be sponsoring an event that I'm very excited about with J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy and also the movie opening, and Clarence Page. Both are from Middletown, Ohio, and they'll be coming together because one of the agendas of the Woodson Center is to desegregate poverty. Our goal is to unify America, and we think that low-income whites and low-income blacks have more in common than they have as difference. And we will be having a session. I'll be in location with Clarence. We'll be meeting in Cincinnati, and we'll be telling you more about this, but we're excited about this. Again, the goal of the center is to unify America. And we must, challenge the race grievance industry. We must not allow people to use the rich legacy of the civil rights movement as a bludgeon to destroy this country. But I want to thank Kelly Wright. I want to thank all of you, my funders who've walked with us this year. It's just been a blessing. And thank you so much. God has been good to us, and he will continue to bless us if we deserve the blessing.
And on that note, we'll come to a conclusion tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you who have watched this on Facebook Live. 1776 Unites, the Woodson Center celebrating the first anniversary of 1776 Unites. I would also say that since Bob talked about God, let's close it out in the right fashion, that we talked about perseverance, and we've seen those voices of Black Mothers United talking about their suffering and getting through it. In Romans 5, it says, suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And that's what we've heard here tonight, a theme about truth, perseverance, and triumph. I'm Kelly Wright. You can see me daily on the Kelly Wright Show, Monday through Friday, on the Black News Channel. And as we end my show, I'd like to end it the same way. Hopefully tonight you've been righted, ignited, and united to not spread fear, not spread malice or violence, but knowledge, love, freedom, and peace. Good night. Thank you.